Hey, everybody, welcome to another segment of Trade Waiting, where we talk about recently released stories that have been released in their entirety. I'm Nathan. You can find me online at Twitter and Instagram at DazzlerAOA.
And I'm Spider-Man, and you can find me web-slinging around from building to building, pal. I cannot breathe in this. Hold on.
I was like, Spider-Man, your amazing friends are here. Mary Jane, she says, like, want to give you kisses. I don't know.
Well,
so does Bobby.
I recognize my amazing friends, but I'm actually just Nico, and you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NicoAction.
And today we are talking about a story that has recently been released on Trade, the amazing Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black tie-in. So this story has been so fun, and it was brought to us by the writer Peter David. Greg Land did pencils. Jay Leistein was the inker. Frank Darmada was the colorist, and VC's Joe Sabino was the letterer. So, like, this was such a fun story, and I can't get past just how fun it was. So, I know we were talking a little bit before when you read through the story about the choice of cast for it. I'm pretty much in agreement in what you were thinking about it, but I want to hear your thoughts about it.
Well, so first of all, let me say I didn't know that this thing existed. I think I remembered seeing like 2 years ago, there was a Symbiote Spider-Man miniseries. Turns out there's been like 4 now, and this is the King in Black one. And I was just really entertained. You know, when I think Pat, I think a certain thing. When I think Greg Land, I think a certain thing. And I don't know that I thought either of them taking me back to, you know, Back in Black Spider-Man sort of times was what I was really looking for. But I sunk into it and I had such a great time with it. And I think what maybe I enjoyed the most was it sort of read like a best parts version of a Spider-Man run. It was kind of like this was like 2 years of Spider-Man, and it was all of the guest spots he would have had, and it was the big long boiling mystery in the background he would have had, but we did it in 5 issues. And you know, I was a little unsure if I wanted to really read this kind of sorta, you know, not because of anything other than I was like, Spider-Man, you know, when you were like, oh well, there's this Spider-Man trade, and I was like, all right, so Dane was in it, and that was awesome. And we're talking about Black Knight over on, well, Black Knight. You can never have enough Monica. But, you know, I thought to myself, Monica, who's in WandaVision. And then I thought to myself, Black Knight, who's about to be in Eternals. And Kang, who we'll go with is the expected villain of Quantumania. And Rocket Raccoon, not the Beatles song. The Collector, also from Guardians, like Rocket. It really felt to me like a who's who of tie-ins, which actually came up in our recent discussion of Shang-Chi, where we felt like that is reading like a who's who of tie-ins, so people who want to get ready for the movie can get ready for the movie, right? I know this was like, but this was so many people you love, and it was like so many people you love in the era you love them best is the thing. Right. So was this just like an ice cream sundae just dropped into your lap in trade form?
It was. Seeing Monica back as Captain Marvel was worth the price of admission alone for me, just because, like, that's my Captain Marvel. Like, I love Carol. Carol Danvers is great. I love her as a character. But, like, you know, it's kind of like Doctor Who doctors, right? You always fall in love with the first one you're introduced to. So that's why Monica is always going to be my captain, because that's who she was. And I loved seeing her back in that day. I'm guessing the story takes place after Dane joins and before Monica leaves, so it had to have been in the late like 270s, 280s of the Avengers, I'm thinking. So like it was kind of cool to see a tale back from that era, which is like my prime love for Avengers 2 as well. And I'm like, and Uatu is in this book. Like, oh my God, like it had everything I could want that wasn't X-Men.
And, you know, I do hear you that it had everything but the X-Men. but I kind of feel like in some ways it really did have X spirit.
Did.
And that's something I really appreciate about it. I always feel like one of the reasons that perhaps we didn't see more Peter David and Chris Claremont collaborations at some point was because they do similar things but completely differently.
Oh god, yeah.
And it's that sort of big overarching story sort of creeping in out of nowhere. And I also read the Black Knight King in Black tie-in.
Yep.
Right. And I talked about it on the show with Kevo, and we did a thing in our Black Knight coverage. In our, we talked about that, and now, we're about to finish up Black Knight, number 5. And I feel like one of the things that I appreciated was it's not that I thought the King in Black special didn't stand on its own, but there was a lot of, we know this sword can defeat Null. And I was like, but why? Why this sword this time? I feel like Elle Woods every time I say that. Why this emission this time? It's the ammonium thioglycolate. And like, that's kind of what I feel here. Why this sword this time? It's sort of the Shadonium thioglycolate, because number one, okay, let me rewind. Did you read King in Black?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, now I know that it was predominantly covered by Rod and Juan. They covered issues 1 through 4, and I know that we kind of had a quick roundtable on how fucking cool it was. The X-Men were so all over that thing.
Yes.
Not in some secret shitty little way.
No.
Not like, oh, check out the recent X-Men King in Black miniseries that had no bearing on the plot. I mean, from Sword to the actual miniseries itself, X-Men played a big role. And I feel like because Sword was issues 2, 3, and 4, and that was a lot of material. I feel like the X-Men and King in Black, there's like a really lasting imprint there. And I would love to know what you thought about King in Black. To be honest, I did brush up on my KIB for this coverage of BK. And the thing I felt the most was King in Black was meant to be a story about transformation and change that maybe skipped why the transformation and change matter. How did you feel about King in Black? Not necessarily beginning to end, but 1 through 5, maybe think about the ending a little more than the beginning, because
You're right. I think it was a great fun setup. I think it was a really fun balls to the wall kind of arc. Like, it was like, it didn't take the time. It didn't take time to like set up like 5 issues where, oh my god, they're gonna like have this horrible thing happen, and bam, the horrible thing happens. It happens right away. So like, you jump into it and you're like, oh shit, this is a story. I loved it. And looking back on it now, it's a lot better than I thought at the time. I was a little burned out on these huge events that Earth is always getting like on the verge of destruction. Like, because we just come out of like Empire or Realms, and it's just like, good god, it would be so tiring to live in Marvel 616. Like, the insurance premiums have to be outrageous.
And that's why I think we had such a great time with Heroes Reborn, because it wasn't the end of the universe. It was just a different universe, and we just had to get back to it. You know what I mean? So like, by the end, I was actually pretty tired of King in Black. Not that Donny Cates didn't do a great job.
Oh, he did. He fantastic.
Fantastic job. And I don't think you read Venom quite as aggressively as I did. I did a big super Venom read for King in Black. And a lot of that, setup got moved right into Venom. And Donny Cates is really good at kind of like rolling with the punches. And, there's an arc of his Venom, not by him. There's an arc of his Venom by Cullen Bunn, who also did a lot of the Venomized stuff. And that's the War of the Realms arc.
Okay.
So like, Venom even managed to build up more Venom under another writer during another guy's crossover. It's really interesting, the road it took to get here. But I loved the tie back to Silver Surfer Black. Had you read Black?
have not. It's been on my list for forever because isn't it Mike Allred who does the art, or who does the art on that? Isn't it?
We live in the future, so
I
we're
know, right?
just gonna look it up. I personally grabbed the Silver Surfer Black Marvel Treasury Edition
Oh,
because I thought it was just too beautiful, and I loaned it out, and I haven't gotten it back just yet. So Trad Moore,
oh,
who is
okay.
also
I got it really confused. Sorry.
oh no, because you're thinking of the really great Dan Slott Mike Allred run that
That's what I'm
has a
thinking of.
very Doctor Who feel
Yeah.
that preceded this by just a little bit.
Okay.
This was a special edition. Silver Surfer got spat out of a void in Guardians of the Galaxy back into the past, where he
Oh.
faced Null, like way in the past, which is why Null is like, "Do I recognize you?" And Silver Surfer's like, "We've met, but NBD, I'm here to fight you." And we all think that Silver Surfer is going to be the one to fight him. And it turns out Silver Surfer is just here to bring Captain Universe and his surfboard so that Mjolnir and the surfboard could form some giant super axe. I have a lot of feelings about this because
Tell me about your feelings, Nico.
listen, I love that Donny Cates saw a man worth saving in Venom.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know that Eddie Brock is worthy. And like he was on panel. He was a bit like, here's me holding one, doesn't make me worthy. You know what I mean? So and now I got another. Look how worthy I am. But like, in all seriousness, the guy's done some really unfucking believably disturbing things, and so has Thor.
Yeah.
You know, Cates is over on Thor, and he's doing that now. But like, for me, one of the things about worthiness is it comes from a place of pure desire to save the world.
Right.
And I kind of think in that moment it was maybe a little bit more like Eddie Brock was, I have to save my son and kill this guy. And that's not the same thing as kill this guy is not save the world. And I just think the two are different. And it was a cool visual. It was a cool super ability. But here's how I'm going to explain it away. I think it was Captain Universe. I think Captain Universe made him worthy. Are you a Captain Universe guy?
I have only gotten into the stories where Captain Universe, like, you know, Captain Universe pops up here and there. So I've only gotten to a few of the stories. Like, I'm not like a huge, like, I've got to follow all the Captain Universes kind of stuff kind of thing. But I don't know. What about you? Like, are you a big Captain Universe guy? Or?
I mean, I am and I'm not. I am and I'm not, right? Like, I know my Captain Universe lore, and I read the Jay Ferber miniseries that came out in like 2006 that had it had Daredevil and X-23 and Invisible Woman. I read that, and you know, it's funny, we just had Jay on, so it just came up earlier, but that is my main, you know, formative. Oh, this is what Captain Universe is. Oh, Cosmic Spider-Man is Captain Universe. Oh, good to know. Right, that was kind of like my understanding of it for a really long time. I think it's interesting. I just think that the Marvel Universe is so over inundated with Captain Universe and the Star Brand and the Phoenix Force. There's just so many the one special power things that kind of assigning this one a meaning. Oh, he's the god of light, the way Null is the god of darkness.
Yeah.
Okay. That ties up enough loose ends for me. I can kind of hand wave the rest that I need to hand wave. You know, I'm not webbing myself with frustration. So, you know, I guess at the end of the day, that's what I think about King in Black. It was a good story. The ending feels very abrupt. It just feels like it ends. It doesn't feel like there's much of an ending. He just sort of kills Null in a way that doesn't feel super satisfactory. It's just like 10 pages of killing Null.
Yeah.
All right.
I was, so obviously, like you mentioned, I really hadn't read Venom as really that much. I Eddie Brock never really appealed to me. Like, I'll just be honest. Like, he's like, you think I'd like Jerks because I'm like madly in love with Gambit, but like it's just like not I just never saw that redeemable thing about him. So going into the miniseries, I was a little lost as to know who Noel was. I was like, who the fuck is this weird guy? Like, but and at that point, I did really like the miniseries and their ability to sort of tie it in and bring us back to like, hey, this is some of the story. Like, actually, the Return of the Valkyrie actually did a lot of filling that backstory in for me because I was like, oh, cool, and like, I loved how that miniseries that wasn't hyped up actually dealt a big blow to Noel too, even. So like I'm like, oh my god, cool, yay. And then I'm like, Danny's a Valkyrie again. Woo. But like I did love all of that. I loved a lot of the tie-ins, like in like Fantastic Four, Black Knight was a good issue. And this story that we're talking about right here, Symbiote Spider-Man, really drew me in because of the characters involved. But it gave me a lot of history into Noel. So upon rereading it again, I'm like, oh, cool. I actually kind of understand a lot more of what's going on than I would have before.
I feel like, yeah, the tie-ins did a lot of heavy lifting on King in Black. And it's so interesting because that really does bring us right back to Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black, because this did kind of the heavy lifting. So the Black Knight one shot could be a one shot that led into his new mini series. And, the parallel constructions of that are a little crazy. And to sort of zero in on this mini series, I feel like Black Knight didn't belong in it.
Okay.
I feel like Rocket Raccoon didn't belong in it. I felt like Monica did a thing only Monica could do.
Right.
I felt like Black Knight did a thing only the Ebony Blade could do. And obviously you can't just take it from him. But the only thing I got from his inclusion here was making his King in Black one shot make a little more sense.
Okay.
But
that makes sense.
For my money, this Dane had very few lines and very little agency.
Okay.
Now, how did you feel about, because to me, it's a trade-off. Like, you've only got so much room for so many people, but we've got Smythe, we've got Jay Jonah, we've got Neil deGrasse Tyson getting fired.
I know, that was crazy.
I loved that line. That was really cute. We've got Monica, we've got Black Knight, we've got Rocket, we've got Kang, who is so great in character here. This was some really great Kang. It's just so many people that it meant that somebody had to lose some page time. I'm really glad it wasn't Monica, who I thought was a big highlight of most of her pages. How did you feel about that sort of trade-off with Dane having to take kind of a reduced role so his sword could be more prominent?
I didn't mind it as much because what Dane we got was so in character with that era. Like,
it was so Danesy.
It was so Dane with, like, he was just Dane. Like, it was so Dane. It's not like the modern take or interpretation on Dane. It was like that classic, like, Avengers, like, he's not like this big mess that he is now kind of guy. But like, I really enjoyed seeing that. I was like, oh yeah, this is why this guy was an Avenger, because like he really was pretty much on his game at the time. Like, yeah, like if you look at him now, you're like, wow, how the hell did they let that guy in the Avengers? It's like,
he's having a tough day.
They're like, they make him sit with D-Man at the reunions or something. The pictures, they're like, go sit with D-Man. I love D-Man though.
I love D-Man. And speaking of heroes that look like other heroes, all right, are you a Greg Land guy?
So I like to poke fun at Greg Land online. I don't hate, I like his style. I know that there's a lot of reusing of poses, and he'll take great inspiration from like things he sees in real life and articles and stuff. And the tracing allegations too, but I do like his style. It's very stylized. Like, you could, like, without even knowing that it's Greg Land, I could look at the page and know it's Greg Land. Like it's that stylized. So it's one of the few artists out there that is that instantly recognizable to me. I did love his run on Uncanny. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
Like what was it, the 500 eras, right?
Yeah,
So
it's like
yeah,
the quarantine era.
yeah, yeah, and it was like obviously he did my favorites like Karma and Dazzler featured heavily in that stuff. So I was like, of course I was reading it, and I like his art style. Like I get why people don't like him maybe, but I do like the art style. It really is very, yeah, it's good.
It's pleasing.
Yeah.
I think he and Dharmata get a little too much shit for what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think this is much less, I'm going to use the word offending art than going back, 15 years ago when he was doing work on Ultimate Marvel. I think this is a lot less offending. I think Dharmata's colors, as oversaturated and almost goopy as they are, like there's times it feels like there's so much pen ink in his darks on the page that it's almost got to be heavier, right?
Yeah.
I think his work complements Land so well in a way that even if you don't like them together, you know that they belong together. You just might not like it. And I feel like they both get a lot of shit for not being able to do things that aren't photorealistic. I feel like that's one of the most consistent criticisms of their pairing. But my response is going to be, I never once thought that shadow creature lacked for identity.
Yes.
Mr. E as a character has no defining qualities except he is a blob. And despite being an amorphous blob, he still retained a sense of physical agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he really, Greg Land's really grown in some ways. Like, whereas before there was a lot of, and it might just be the times, right? Before there was a lot of over sexualization of some of the poses of the characters. In this art here, not like you were kind of saying, none of it was like offensive like that. None of it was like, I didn't look at Monica and say like, why is she standing in that pose? Like,
why is her mouth open like that? Like, nothing like that. Agreed.
Yeah. So like in that way, like I think he's grown with the times at least, and is not pushing that over sexualization, and which was a lot of what people were more critical of on it. Yeah. But like this whole this whole story, like, did it really serve much of a point, right? Like, I don't know that it did.
It just really set up that the sword would make more sense in King in Black later.
Right. But like, just like the whole cast, the sense of adventure, it was very true. Like nobody felt out of place. The writing was of the writing of the characters was really good. Like Pad, like for all of his flaws and foibles, like he has these characters down packed.
For all of his flaws and foibles, yes, I would agree. Peter Allen David is stuck in the 1980s.
It isn't that part of his flaws and foibles, right?
And that's like part of his charm. It's the same way Claremont kind of is. It's the same way that I feel like whenever I pick up a Bendis comic, it just reads like 2004. You can't really do much to change it. It's who his voice is. It's that John Fogerty joke. Somebody sued me for writing a song that sounded too much. So, okay, John Fogerty had been the lead singer of Creedence Clearwater Revival. To get out of his record contract, he sold the rights to his songs. About 10 years later, 15 years later, he writes a song that sounds too much like one of his original songs, and his former manager sues him because he owns the rights to the song. And John Fogerty went to court with his guitar and played the songs to prove why they're completely different. And he ultimately said, I'm John Fogerty, and I got sued for writing songs that sound too much like John Fogerty. When you put Peter David on something meant to look like it's like something meant to sound like it's from 1985, and you put Greg land on something that's meant to look like it's from that like 2012 Back in Black era. When you put two people who can so evoke a previous era really cleanly together, I think it works really well. I really liked how the team played together creatively. It made me feel like I could accept the conceits, because there were some conceits that I didn't love here. Kang just disappears into the night. Like you said, this didn't really serve any purpose.
Right.
Kang just disappears, and Monica just is like, I'm going to go back to being Monica, because she should, right?
Yeah.
That's that famous joke of anybody could have come and gone from Avengers Mansion in the 1970s and 80s, and nobody would have fucking known. In 1990s, everybody had a goddamn membership card to the Avengers Mansion.
Yeah.
It was just, Jarvis was just fucking like, how many fucking dry cleaning trips today? So, you know,
all those bomber jackets. Oh my god. Like how many, like I hope they got bulk discount on that, but like
and I hope Janet was just, yeah, guys, I'll make you as many bomber jackets as you need. Just keep ordering them, guys. No big deal. Janet was just printing money. So I feel like, you know, the only really negative I have to say about this arc is what you've already said. You said it so beautifully. Like, I just don't know why. Just the why. Not that it wasn't good. Not that once I had it, it wasn't there. But it feels like Marvel realized it's a bad idea not to have the symbiote suit in print at all points, because people will buy it for its visual. And it feels like they said, how can we help out Spurrier's Black Knight story? Because as much as I love Cy Spurrier, it sometimes feels like he always had to cut 3 really vital story pages from the script.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would probably give this a pretty high 3 webs up, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I loved the characterization. I loved the pacing and the plotting. It had one moment that I can't go another second without talking about.
Oh, good.
Watch me was the best line of dialogue a Watcher has ever said.
Yes.
When the Watcher was just like, I'm gonna explode now. Bye. Right? Like, that was
yes. Oh my god, that was good.
And Ulik was fun, you know, for a Thor guy. I don't know how I fucking skipped Ulik so hard. You know, his sister, I need to see her appear in 1,000 more books.
Right?
Cosmo was cute. Yeah, you know what? There were so many guest stars. I'm going to up this to 4 webs out of 5. There were so many guest stars. Did you read this live or did you read it trade?
I jumped in when I saw Monica on the cover. I was like, okay, what is this? And then I went back and read it, and then I was like, oh, this is cool. But I was like, Monica comes in issue 3, yes. Like, oh my god. Because like I'm like superstar fan of Monica, but like, like that woman. But yeah, no, reading it live then during the event, I didn't really tie it together as much as now I can, looking back and rereading it now and saying, oh, like it did serve that point to set up the Black Knight sword thing, but at the time it just felt like a really fun nostalgia trip that maybe I didn't really think I needed at the time, but I liked getting it.
And I'm really glad you made that determination, because that does bring me to something, you know, this is a new thing we're doing, trade waiting, right? We're experiencing creating this programming live. And one of the things that I realized after our previous episode was I had said, yeah, I would buy this on Comixology about the Power Pack story. And you said, I might check Marvel Unlimited first, see if it's for you. And if you want to support it, buy it then. And I'm going to say I would not be satisfied if I purchased this on Comixology. I don't know that a flashback insert retcon tie-in to a major crossover featuring the sort of background origin, right? Because if Null is a result of a combination of Thor, because he's the dark god in God of Thunder 5, I think it is, or 6, right? 6. He's the dark god crashed into the crater in the Gore solo issue. And, you know, when you think about the fact that Venom is all Spider-Man anyway, and how could Symbiote Spider-Man not be a part of the Venom crossover?
Right.
It sort of feels like this is a cute way, because there is a bunch of Thor, and, you know, this was and let's just say it now, Kang is in Loki, so it's still a
Yeah.
little bit more Thor. It felt like kind of a cute way to say I love you to something without actually ever being able to say the words. So I guess this was the Han Solo of tie-ins. And I don't know that. Yeah. Okay. A Peter David Greg Land book is a Han Solo. It thinks it is, at
Totally. It's totally
least.
Han Solo. Yeah.
And yeah, this is, I don't know that I needed another Han Solo running around. If I wanted to check out these characters, you could do a whole lot worse than spend an hour reading this on Marvel Unlimited. I would not myself purchase it on Comixology. Having purchased some of it and then gone back and read it, what do you think about the purchasability or the value of this story?
So unless you are a super fanatic of some of these characters like Monica or Dane,
Cosmo.
Oh my god, that was like I wouldn't go out and buy it. I would read it on Marvel Unlimited. You'll have a good time. You'll enjoy it. Like you're not going to regret spending an hour it takes to read you on that. No. But like would I have gone out and spent that money if I wasn't a super fan of these characters? No. I don't think I would have needed to. And it didn't add that much to the story of the Syberia Black Knight tale to really make it worthwhile. We know the sword's powerful and important. So
It's
like,
magic. It does
it's
stuff.
magic.
It's got
You
an
just
evil
hand-wave it away.
voice.
Like, ugh. But like, until you mentioned it, I didn't put together how much this cast was. Like, even the more we're thinking about it and the more we're talking about it, how MCU this cast is
Yeah.
for a book. Because like at the time, did we know? At the time, we didn't really know that how big of a role Monica would play in WandaVision. We didn't really know Loki would be. I mean, that
Kang
Kang
coming through
would be
Loki.
in
Yeah.
Loki. So like looking at it now with everything that's been released and knowing that Dane is going to show up in Black Knight, I mean in Eternals, is like every guest star of this except for Ulick. I don't think Ulick showed up in Thor yet. Maybe his Thor Ulick will show up in Love and Thunder.
He's such a big villain during that source material that he really could. He's such a major villain in the Jane era
Yeah.
that I would think it's very possible. And I don't know how neither of us have realized it. Oh my God, Black Suit Spider-Man is a Venom tie-in.
Yep.
Like the Venom movies.
Yeah. So like every character was carefully placed to tie in with those characters so that like you can see, oh cool, this is how the MCU characters would get along if we put them all in a comic book together. So like we got some really cute Rocket moments, but Rocket makes no sense being in that book at all. Like what the like I was just like, what?
Did he serve a purpose? Like not like in a negative critical way, but what did he bring to this story?
Did he guide them to nowhere, or did Kang guide them to nowhere? I'm kind of like, I think Rocket guided them to nowhere.
Couldn't Kang have?
Yeah. And like they used his ship. No, they used, oh my god. Yeah, no, I don't know. They could use Tony Stark's. Yeah.
We could have just combined it down a little bit. I guess Rocket, always fun and kind of sounds like Peter David in general, like, you know, the voicing. So I get it. I just don't think he added anything special.
No. Did Cosmo really not? I mean, yeah, they were on nowhere, so you expect him to show up, but Cosmo didn't really add anything to it either. Like, Ulick being on nowhere is kind of weird. Like,
it's a little random. I accept that people can do magic space travel and space travel magically, however they need to do it. You know, with Manifold out there, proven that anything is possible when you ask the universe real nice. I can imagine that just about anybody can be anywhere, but don't do it and then be like, duh. You know what I mean? Like that's the one thing I don't need. Don't be like, of course Ulick showed up.
Like, yeah, it was very random. I enjoyed their interactions. Like the only one who was a little out of character to me, and they did a decent job explaining why, but was Uatu, just because Uatu got a lot too involved into it that he would have never gotten that involved in the story. Like he would have been a lot more subtle, like, hey, go over here and get this thing, like kind of thing.
Just
Instead
like
of
bouncing things off his shiny bald head,
yeah.
spotlighting things.
He's like, beacon.
I kind of love that he was like, my future friend family won't let me come save the day, so that's that.
Mm.
I
Anytime you see Watchu, I'm like, oh, like now that Watchu's back, I want them to reboot What If, like as that What If like series, like that it was, because Watchu was the best part of What If. Like, and even though they had some great stories, but like Watchu was the best part.
I would love if they rebooted What If, but I would probably have it be digital only with
Yeah.
hardcovers or trades. I think we need to start moving into a digital only. Marvel, you can't handle this many titles. That's why you have to cancel so many so quickly. And I think people would much sooner buy a hardcover with 5 digital issues in it to catch up on a series that then becomes monthly in shops.
Yeah.
Like, I think you can make one switch easier than the other. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But all said and done, I loved this. I probably will check out more of the Symbiote Spider-Man stories. I think you've mentioned there's a few other really interesting ones because you've kept reading this series, right?
Yep, there's one out now. Carnilla shows up in the issue, so I'm like, yay! Ties into the Valkyries, so I'm like, woo! Like, and I'm guessing Carnilla will probably show up in Love and Thunder, probably.
Oh, let's keep everything
Right.
crossed. So, all right, if you trade weighted, you should check it out on Marvel Unlimited, and if you think it's worth it, you should check it out online. Fair assessment?
Yeah, fair assessment.
All right.
Hey guys, if you like that cut from X's4 Podcast, you'll be sure to like some of our other materials. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out these other amazing videos here at X's4 Podcast.